It's been a little bit. I'm sorry about that. Just been traveling about. My guest is Edgar Willett. Hey, man, congrats
Hi,
on everything.
thank you.
So I kind of wanted. I've been actually wanting to ask you about this for a while. It just seems to me that everything Canadian has ended up on your lap for the last few years.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that, but
Quite a bit. I mean, you got on spec, you got you got on spec kind of going your way. You have your own publishing, like your press now, and I know this too because my publisher in Canada has restructured, and a lot of other publishers have restructured.
yeah,
And somehow, and all through all this, you are there. Like you have somehow, again, it's all seems to be going in your direction. So it's just like I don't want to quite call you Mr. Canada because that's not quite right, but I've noticed that you've been very quietly behind the scenes keeping things afloat.
yeah. I don't even know how I do it sometimes, but stuff keeps coming to me, and I keep taking it on, and I keep getting it done. Although I'm stretched pretty darn thin, and Shadowpaw Press is. I put out 20 books all by myself. Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And that's too much.
Yep.
So I'm cutting back. I'm down to I think. Well, it was going to be six, but now I think it's seven this year, and next year I'm aiming for just four. And I think if I'm going to keep going in any fashion, I'll have to keep it to about four,
No, no,
four to six.
but that's about right, right? Because 20, that's so
Yeah, I have no idea how I did that.
uh so I imagine you were kind of like a machine at the end. You were just like, you ever see that episode on The Simpsons where Apu was a hummingbird like 96 hours straight? That was probably you at the end. Like you were just doing your thing. You were just like, I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm just doing it. And when it was over, you were like, thank God. Probably took a nap for like 3 days.
Yeah, it's just what I do. So I just keep doing it.
That's fair. So how did it happen? Like why do you think you're that guy or I became that guy?
That's a good question. All I ever want to do, and all I still want to do, is just write. I never wanted to be a publisher. And the writing was going along pretty well. I was getting about a book a year out from Daw Books there for a while. Um, and and I'm doing a lot of nonfiction writing on the side and all that sort of thing. But then in 2018, I wanted to put out um, two books. One was a collection of my own short fiction. I don't write a lot of short fiction. It took me a long time to have enough to put into a book. I wanted to put that out, and I also had my grandfather-in-law's First World War memoirs that I wanted to bring out in time for the centennial of the armistice that year in November of 2018. And I was just going to self-publish them, put them out through Amazon and KDP, that sort of thing. And I talked to a local publisher who said, no, you should start a publishing company. And I keep saying I haven't properly thanked her for that yet, because I've been running Shadowpaw Press ever since. And to begin with, it was those two books, and it was reprints because I have metaphorically killed a lot of publishers over the years. They publish me, but then they're not around anymore. So the rights come back to me. And I was putting out new editions of some of that. And then my own podcast, The World Shapers, also started in 2018. And in 2019, I was at the annual meeting of Sask Books, the publishing association here in Saskatchewan, of which I'm vice president. And there was somebody from Winnipeg who came in, a publisher, and she had successfully kickstarted an anthology. And I thought, I thought about kickstarting something, but I never tried. And I know a bunch of authors now because I've been interviewing them for my podcast. So I decided to invite my first year's worth of guests to, if they'd be interested in being part of an anthology. And enough of them said yes, that turned into Shapers of Worlds. And so all of a sudden, Shadowpaw Press was publishing John Scalzi and Julie Sheneda and Tanya Huff and Joe Haldeman and David Brin. They were all in that first book. And I thought, well, that almost makes me a real publisher now. And then I was writer in residence at the university not the university, but at the Saskatoon Public Library. And I had run across a novel there that I told the author, this is, I would be willing to publish this if you can't find a publisher. And she came to me with it. And then Matt Hughes approached me with a book. And so I was publishing other people. And then it just grew from there. And somehow I ended up with what's now a pretty active traditional publishing company. I pay royalties and all that sort of thing. And I'm a member of the Association of Canadian Publishers. I'm a member of Literary Press Group of Canada, and distributed through Lit Disco, which is one of the main distributors. So somehow I ended up with a real publishing company, and it's still just me and the cat.
So is the cat the boss?
Well, he's the figurehead.
He's
His
the,
picture is on every book. Do I have one handy
yeah.
here?
Yes.
Yeah. Here's like he's the logo on the back of the book.
Nice. So he is the boss. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he is, and he does like to, climb into my lap at inopportune moments and supervise closely whatever it is I'm trying to get done on the computer.
That's what cats do. Cats do whatever they want to do. That's something
Yeah.
I've learned about cats myself. I really, but dude, that. It sounds like I know, Jake. Like, not going into other publishing details exactly, but I know like cheesing disappeared. A lot of other things disappeared during the pandemic as well, and like there was a need for someone like you, and you came in at almost like the right time.
I guess. I mean, it's not like it's a money-making proposition by any means. And if it weren't for like here in Saskatchewan, we have very uh, healthy support from Creative Saskatchewan. There's a book publishers grant that I rely on heavily in order to cover the expenses of printing. And the trouble with traditional publishing as opposed to self-publishing is that you have to print books up front and you don't know if they're going to sell or not. And if they don't sell, they just sit in a warehouse and they're a lost input that you're not making back. So there's all those sorts of things. And I can't recommend it as a way to make money. So it's really a labor of love, very much so.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna lead down this where we talk about like what's going on with you and other things. Shadow Paw has been around now then for 7 years. Is that right? 7?
It'll be 7 years this. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So congratulations on 7 years, first off. But I guess the big question is, I know initially you planned it for your own stuff, but my thought process is, with your books, you've learned a lot about at least what works for you. I would hope at least. So what have you learned?
Well, I just some of the things I've like the thing I've already mentioned that, when you're working on as just an author and you're working with a publisher, you don't think necessarily about everything that's going on within the publisher. And now I have a better idea of things like distribution and the challenges around that. And marketing, I'm not good at marketing as far as I can tell, but then I can't tell that anybody's good at marketing. We all just throw stuff at the wall and hope that something sticks.
I, I've had thoughts about marketing in the last few years, like myself. It's storytelling, but it's very much it's simplistic storytelling in the sense that you're trying to basically help people solve a problem or walk people across a bridge, essentially. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but like I said, everything I've learned in the last few years, it's like you're telling a story ultimately, even when you're marketing. You'd think we'd be better at it.
Yeah, but it's not just that. The biggest problem with book publishing in general is that too many people are writing and publishing books. There's just too much stuff out there, and it's very, very difficult for you to cut through that and for somebody to find enough people to find your book to make any significant um, number of sales. And it's, most books sell very few copies, even among, I mean, there was some sort of court case a while ago, one of the major publishers, and even the major publishers will admit that, a lot of books don't sell very many copies. So that's the challenge. I mean, you're putting books out there. They're good books. I've had numerous books that I've published. Uh, they've been nominated for awards and they get great reviews and all that stuff. And they do get sold and they sell a few hundred copies, but I'm not breaking into those um, giant numbers that I would like to. And when you do get one that really takes off, and that's where I've been fortunate enough now to publish 3 books by Robert J. Sawyer, and I've got a 4th one about to come out from Rob, and he has this massive platform and following, and so I immediately see the difference and he's also very, very good at the marketing and doing speeches across the country and being writers in residence here and there and going to conventions and all that sort of thing. You do see the difference uh, when you're fortunate enough to have somebody at that level. Um, but yeah, that's one of the things I've learned, I guess, is that who the author is and what kind of a name they already have for themselves makes a big difference on the publishing side as to how many books you're going to sell. And you're trying to get everybody there, but it's very hard with limited resources. And if you do spend a lot of money on marketing, there's still no guarantee that it will work. And I always say I was a journalism major in university, and one of the courses I had to take was public relations. And I only remember two things from that. One was never lie to the press, which I think is mostly ignored by and the other one
Especially today.
and
Yes.
the other one is was that 90% of marketing is wasted, but nobody knows which 90% it is, which is a version, of course, of Sturgeon's law. 90% of everything is crap. Um, but yeah, it's always, you do the best you can and you hope, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So if I had any magic wand to make it work, that would be grand, but I haven't found it yet.
And I mean, like I said, Rob definitely, I'm sure, helps the brand. But I'm like, I mean, you never know. Like, maybe one of these books will hit, you'll have a giant hit on your hands. And
well, and some of them are, they're for what they are, they're quite successful. I have literary novels in particular, but it is what it is. And I'm a very small publisher, very active publisher, but very, very small publisher. I don't have. Our biggest publisher here in Regina is the University of Regina Press. They have a whole staff, and some years they have put out fewer books than I do.
So I mean, it is a labor of love for you, then, for sure.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and all I really want to do is write. So at some point, I suspect the publishing will slowly fade away, and I'll go back to just writing, because I have a couple of novels out now looking for homes. I have one contracted. I have lots I would like to write, continue series that I've begun. And all of that is by the wayside at the moment. I can only do so much.
So essentially, based on what I'm gathering, is I'm in a weird spot because I just traveled for the last 2 years. I've been backpacking. I did Canada, States, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala. Like, so I've been traveling about, and I have a ton of my own stories. And like, as an author myself, I'm kind of going like, I think what I'm trying to do is kind of create my own brand, because it makes sense, right, to have something that's you, and then try to reach out to various publishers for some of the other things I'm working on as well. I just the biggest thing I learned on my trip was you gotta constantly put the work out there. So, which is why I think, in partly, maybe the nature of Shadow Paw Press evolves, but I don't know if you completely get out of being a publisher. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, there is that. I mean, and first of all, I've already got books contracted that'll take me through all of 2027. So, there's kind of a minimum number I need to do. If I do 4 a year, I can do one of them can be mine. If I need, to publish my own, I can leverage the Shadow Paw Press, because I can, as I have with Fireboy, the book that we're going to talk about here in a minute, I think.
Yeah, eventually.
That came through out from Shadow Paw Press. I've published very little original books of mine through Shadow Paw Press, just 2, I think, original ones, and the others have been reprints that were previously published somewhere else that I put out. But Shadow Paw Press is a real publisher, and has bookstore distribution, which is the big thing that's very hard to do if you're just self-publishing. And it has a sales force as a result of being part of Literary Press Group, and so it gets pushed in ways that a self-publisher finds very difficult to do. So from a purely selfish point of view, keeping Shadow Paw Press going at about that 4 to 6 books a year level could benefit me as well, if I continue to find that I want to put out some of my stories myself. And the big advantage of doing it myself, of course, is that I'm in 100% control of the process, and I can make all the decisions and all of that stuff myself without having to deal with anybody else. And as most writers actually like that a lot, they don't have to deal with a bunch of other people.
There are benefits to both. Like when you self-publish, you're your own boss, but you do everything. You have to do everything. And when you're published through somebody, you don't have to do everything, which is wonderful. But now you have to answer to people. So there's trade-offs either way. And sometimes I think being able to do both is useful. I think that's just my own take on it.
Well, and that's why my writing, like I said, I have 2 novels out right now, a young adult novel and an adult fantasy novel, and they're both with publishers that I hope will be interested. I'm waiting to hear, but they're on the market, and the young adult one I might consider publishing through Shadowpaw Press. The adult one I wouldn't. And I do have a third book in a series that started with Daw, has been picked up by a smaller publisher, and I'm going to be writing that. So I'm totally, I like being published by other people, but it's also nice in a pinch or for certain projects to be able to do it myself. And the other great thing about having Shadowpaw Press now is that I've done a lot of books and I really know how to get a book published.
But that's huge. Like you understand the process, which I think makes you more beneficial to another publisher, if that makes sense. Yeah. So should I be saying congratulations, or do you want to talk about the book you were mentioning there?
Well, both, I guess.
Yes. Congratulations, then.
Thank you. This very day, this book was nominated for its third major award. The novel is called Fireboy. I think of it as it's borderline middle grade young adult. The characters are 13. I think of it as more young adult, but you could consider that middle grade. It's really there in the borderline. But it's been nominated for an Aurora Award for Best YA Novel. It's a finalist for the Manitoba Young Readers' Choice Awards, which means that it's in libraries all across Manitoba, and young people are going to be reading it for the next year, and then they're going to vote on it and the other finalists to see who wins next spring. And then just today, they announced that it's up for Best Young Adult Novel in the High Plains International Book Awards, which are based out of Billings, Montana, and cover, if I remember right, 7 states and 3 provinces in the sort of the High Plains region of North America. So that's everywhere down to Kansas, and then, of course, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta as well. So I'm very thrilled with that. And it is one that I published through Shadowpaw Press. And one of the things I actually quite like about it is that there was no editor involved. I did my own editing, and
wow,
it's nice to know that when I edit my own stuff, I'm still producing something that's good.
That's so hard. No, that's so hard. Because you're blind, you have blind spots. Like I've edited like authors before, and I've edited my own stuff, and I'm like, sometimes I will give it to an editor. It's like, okay, here, and they'll catch something I completely missed. I'm just like, how did I miss that? And it's like, no, wait, it's my stuff. Of course I'm going to miss it. So that, dude, I got to take my hat off to you on that one. Because I think that the hardest thing about editing your own work is you're so close to it. Like it's.
Well, I think one of the benefits of Shadowpaw Press again is that I mostly do the editing. Even if I hire an outside developmental editor, I do the final copy edit and line edit, except for Rob Sawyer stuff, because I know when it comes in, it's pristine. But I don't have to do a line edit or copy edit up for him. But everything else, I read every word, and I think and I've been an editor for a long time. I was a newspaper editor before I became a freelance communications officer. Well, first I was a communications officer, then I've been freelancing, editing, writing, editing, writing. And I do think that working on other people's stuff, and that writer in residence experience I had in Regina and Saskatoon public libraries, I think I'm pretty good at pulling myself out of my story and just seeing it as another piece of fiction that has come across my desk, and I'm now editing this thing, and I edit the same way as I edit my own stuff. So ultimately, I think I'm pretty good as a self-editor, and Fireboy kind of made me think, oh, that might not, that's quite true. And also, it's not the first one. A Star Song, which was one of the other 2 that I've published original works of mine, it was a Saskatchewan Book Award nominee, and it was a Aurora Award finalist, and that was completely self-edited as well.
So I mean, that's a heck of an advertising for your editing service. If you ever do an editing service again, that's a heck of an advertisement for it. Because honestly, I think that's the hardest thing as just someone that edits clients himself is I can see other people's work, and I can kind of look, okay, this is what they do good, this is what they do, this is what they need to work on, right? And I can do I do the same thing, copy edits, line edits. I also do like developmental stuff, and I can look at a book and go, okay, this is what works. This is why I think needs to be done. Myself, I'm like, well, I can't smell my own crap. Like I can't, right? So and that's just my own self awareness on that, right? So kudos to you, because that's rare. That's very rare.
I do some freelance editing, but mostly I have so many editing projects underway through Shadowpaw Press and stuff that it's a rare thing that I take on a freelance basis. But I do some as well. Just put out that little plug there if I ever need more work.
Hey, but why not? Hey, listen, why not? I mean, that's rare. Like, that's legitimately a very rare thing. Congratulations on that. I think the Manitoba one would be the one that scared me the most of the three, because it's one thing to have your peers review you, and I'm not saying that's not a tough crowd, but you're dealing with kids judging your book. That would terrify me just a
Well, I don't
little
think they're going to be writing negative critiques of it, but it's
Well,
the
they're
best.
picking the best one, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like,
Well, the one they like the best. The best thing about it, from my point of view, was that it was an immediate order of 200 copies to go into Manitoba Library. So that was very nice.
yeah, that's a heck of a start, right? That's a heck of a start right there. So yeah, congratulations on your. It seems like, if even if it's not quite what you imagined it, you're well on your way. You know, like just doing your thing.
Yeah, it's just things happen and I do them, and you never know what's going to. I've had all sorts. I'm doing some part-time work for something else right now, and that just kind of came out of the blue. So you just never know when things will. Well, I've been freelancing now for what year is this? I've been freelancing for 33 years as of this year. 1993 was when I quit my last real job. And ever since then, I've been freelancing in one fashion or another with a mixture of writing and editing and a little bit of performing and yeah, anything for a buck.
I understand. I'm kind of like, I gave up the real job during the pandemic in terms of just a regular clock in. I still do go back to work from time to time, but I've been freelancing for the most part now for 5 years. I would say 5-6 years. It's a wild journey.
Well, I will say my best career move was marrying an engineer.
That works. That works. But I mean, hey, 33. I mean, if I, in one sense, I envy you, because I haven't quite gotten to the point where it's like I need to get rid of I can get rid of a day job of some kind permanently. I can do it part time now, which is great, but I'm still not there. So,
Well, this part-time work I'm taking on it's work from home, so it feels like it, and I'm a contractor, so it's a form of freelancing.
oh
At the
yeah,
same time, it's a certain number of hours a day I'm putting in each day, so it also feels like a job in a weird way, but it's all part of it's all one thing.
it's the same idea at the end of the day. It's you're working on a project. You're gonna, whenever the project's done, you move on to the next project, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then somehow you ended up with OnSpec. So how did so how did that work out?
Well, Diane Walton contacted me late last year and said Dawn Spec was ending in December with their final issue, and they were wondering if Shadowpaw Press would be interested in not taking over the magazine, but taking over the brand, the On Spec brand. And I thought about that because I was already thinking I might be pulling back from publishing, but then I thought, well, I could do a Kickstarter like I did for the Shapers of Worlds anthologies. I successfully did 5 Kickstarters, and I've done another smaller one just for Shadowpaw Press. So I know how to run a Kickstarter. I thought, well, I'll take on the brand. I'll run a Kickstarter. If the Kickstarter succeeds, then we'll have an OnSpec 2026 anthology. It's called, the subtitle is New Canadian Literature of the Fantastic. And I ran the Kickstarter and it succeeded. I set it at $10,000 Canadian, and we got over that a bit. About, I think, it's still open for late pledges. If anybody wants to look it up, you can still pledge. Something over $12,000 came in, minus whatever Kickstarter took. So, which is enough to cover the paying the authors and the printing and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's up and running. I had 7 anchor authors confirmed. Candace, see if I'll forget somebody if I try to do this, but I'll try anyway. Candace Jane Dorsey.
Good author.
Yeah, that's one. Fiona Rich.
How Haven't read her, but sounds cool.
Hayden Trenholm and Liz Westbrook Trenholm.
Both are great.
That's 4.
Mm-hmm.
Marcel Dubé. That's
You got
5.
5. Almost there.
Yeah. Douglas Smith and Michel Laframboise. That's it. That's all 7. So those are my anchor authors. And then I opened it up to submissions. They closed at the end of May. I ended up with 130 submissions over and above the 7 from the anchor authors. And I've started weeding through those. My goal is to identify the stories I want to take. Hopefully by the end of this month, it might be into July. And then there'll be contracts and payment and editing. And the goal is to have the book out in time to do a launch at CanCon in Ottawa in mid-October. So that's the timeline I'm aiming toward. Cover art's already done by Jim Beveridge. And there'll also be a cartoon by Lynn Fanistock. And I think, yeah, so it's on its way. Again, it's just me. I had thought that I might call in some help on reading the slush, but I realized that I'm too much of a control freak and I wanted to make every decision as to what story goes in. So
you got yourself to blame a little bit on that one.
Yeah, but I've done this sort of thing before. I've edited, the anthologies were different because those were, everybody that I invited was in it. But I was guest editor for Grain Magazine, which is a long-running literary magazine here in Saskatchewan a few years ago. And one of the things they told me they needed was they hadn't had anybody for a while, and the slush was piling up, and I had to weed it out. So I'm actually quite comfortable going through a pile of manuscripts and deciding fairly quickly which ones I will put in a no pile, which ones go into a maybe pile. Then I go into the maybe ones and look at them more closely, and then from those I will choose the ones that I'm actually going to use. And I figure I can maybe use a 12 to 15 depending on the length. So it's about 1 out of every 10 manuscripts that was submitted that will eventually be in the book. And it's paying 5 cents a word, which is what OnSpec was paying before that.
So that's about right. No, but that's about right though. Like when you go through edits, like the first, it's really easy to identify like what's not ready. We're not going to quite say bad, but like what's not ready. You can usually figure that out within the first few paragraphs. Like,
and to be fair to the authors, it's not necessarily that the story is bad. It's just I look at it and it's my anthology, and I think I just don't want that story, or I've got one of my anchor authors already wrote something too close to that. There's so many reasons why a story could be rejected that has not necessarily anything to do with whether it's well written or not.
No, but I was actually going to go deeper. Like usually the maybe pile is like, these are the stories I like, and then it's sometimes the shape of the collection itself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like sometimes you'll get rejected because your story's good, but maybe Hayden has something like that. He's already kind of anchoring your book, or maybe
if all my favorite stories in the maybe pile turn out to involve fairies, I'm not going to use them all because I can't have 12 stories about fairies.
No, and you're like, it's like then you got to kind of like you have to be discreet, like maybe 1, maybe 2, but that's it, and then you got to go find something else. And like I said, there is a bit of a rhyme or reason to it, but sometimes it's just, again, the final shape of when you put a submission process like this. You don't really have a clear idea until you have a bunch of stories to work with. So
I do like the submissions that come in and say things like, dear editorial board or something like that. And I say, you haven't really paid any attention to how this is working. There's only me. And I always reply, but yes, I got it. Thanks, Ed Willett. And then they know there's just one person on the other end. So it's it's a bit egotistical, I guess, editing an anthology and being the only person involved in the selection process, but that's what will make it my anthology. And if people don't like it, well, I won't have to worry about doing another one, but hopefully there'll be a Kickstarter again next year for OnSpec 2027. And we might keep this going for, a while longer. And then hopefully if I quit doing it, I do know that there was another publisher that was interested in the brand, and perhaps I'll pass it off to them a little bit further down the road so that the name continues. It'd be a shame if that brand ultimately disappeared.
OnSpec's very important to, I think, short fiction in general. I mean, short fiction's in kind of a weird place right now because of where AI is like. Let's be honest, it's part of the fabric right now. But I mean, some of the biggest names in fiction were discovered in magazines like OnSpec, and
Mhm.
OnSpec has published lots of good things, including me. So I mean, hey, I gotta give to my own horn a little bit, but also it's just there's a lot of good Canadian content. There's a lot of good content from all over the world that goes out shows up that has shown up in that magazine in the past, and
That is one thing that's a bit different. I think on spec you could submit from anywhere, but um, this is very specifically the submissions guidelines are very specific that it's only for a bit like the Aurora Awards. It's for Canadian citizens or residents uh, to submit. So it's very strictly a Canadian collection, which is good.
well, listen, it's I still think after all these years, Canadians are some of the most talented people in the world. I think our problem as a country is we tend to take our own people for granted a little bit with how good we really actually are.
Till
That's
they move
something.
away and make it big.
Well, that's what happens. So a lot of them, right? It's just
Yeah.
right. Like we tend to take it for granted until we're like, oh, really? And actually, when I started this podcast way back in the day, before it became what it became, that was the initial goal, was to focus on talented people from Canada that deserve more recognition. Um, because I think, and I still do believe it's to say, Canadians are some of the most talented people in the world, like bar none.
Well, certainly here in Saskatchewan, we have a lot more than our fair share of excellent writers. And one of the things Shadowpaw Press has done is I didn't really set out to be specifically Saskatchewan, and I'm not. I have maybe just one American author, but I do, I don't really care where authors come to me from. But a lot of them have come to me from Saskatchewan, and I'm publishing some of the literary giants of Saskatchewan uh, are coming out through Shadowpaw Press, which is kind of exciting to me as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go. So actually, I'm gonna ask a couple fun questions before we wrap this bad boy up. Um, at this point, just for down the road, what do you look for in a story at this point?
Uh, I want it to grab me right away. I want it to have a richness of language. Um, I see what I think of as flabby writing so often, where they're saying words and they're in some sort of vague amorphous space that I don't see any sensory details. I don't get a really unique idea of where this place or where this setting is or what these people look like or anything. It's this kind of amorphous grayness to it, which I tend to react negatively to. So I'm looking for something gripping. I'm looking for something that's rich in language. And especially in short fiction, you really want an idea that grabs you and and at the same time is self-contained so that it can be dealt with in that story effectively. When I was first submitting short fiction, I often got the note that this is a great idea, but you're really starting a novel. And some of them did turn into novels. So I'm looking for something short fiction should, I don't know if punchiness is the right word, but it needs to have a self-contained and satisfactory whole in that one short narrative. So those are some of the things I look for.
All right. I'm going to ask you to pick. I'm not going to ask you to pick favorites, but exactly. But through your catalog in the last few years, like what have been the books you've released that you've been most proud of? Not including your own.
Not
Taking
including my own.
like, no, we're taking yours out of the equation.
Um, well, I would mention Rob's books, except they came to me in a weird way. They were commissioned by Audible as Audible originals. I'm proud that he offered them to me for the print version. So I'm proud of the fact that I published Robert J. Sawyer, the downloaded, and now Ghosts in the Machine, the downloaded too. But going into sort of the ones that came to me through other ways, I was proud of one of the early ones I published, which was called Thickwood, which was a finalist for Best First Novel at the Saskatchewan Book Awards. That's the one that came to me when I was writing residence. It's a historical novel that combines horses and women's professional baseball. So it's about a young woman who played in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, the League of Their Own, that group.
Mhm.
And then she's returned to Saskatchewan. It's shortly after the war, and she wants to be a horse rancher in the Thickwood Hills in Saskatchewan. So I just really enjoyed that book. Gail M. Smith wrote it as her Master's of Fine Arts thesis, actually. And I was proud to bring that one out. I'm proud to have brought out a book by Glenn Sorstad, his most recent poetry collection. I do commit poetry books sometimes. He was the first poet laureate in Canada, first poet laureate of Saskatchewan, and this was his first book in a long time. And uh, actually, all the books, I have one from Sharon Brutala now coming out, and Dave Margocius. I have a short fiction collection. David Carpenter. These are giants of the Saskatchewan literary scene, and I'm proud to be a literary publisher on that side. But I always come back to science fiction and fantasy, and um, again, that brings me back to Rob's books. But also, there was one that I published last year called "Gods of a New World," which came to me in a very unusual fashion through engineering circles, from my being an engineer. And I discovered that someone she knew in engineering had written a novel, and I read a couple of his previous ones that he'd self-published. And I thought, yeah, he can write. And it's a very interesting story about it's near future, but it's about a world recovering from a kind of economic social collapse that they were raised out of through uh, basically advanced AI and the people behind it. But the result of all that has been that, the world is much better in many ways, the billionaires and now trillionaires, yes, there are trillionaires in this book, um, are now finding ways to seize control of the very nature of reality and make themselves, they call themselves gods, and now they're becoming literal gods. So it's this interesting sort of metaphysical near future science fiction thing with AI and trillionaires in the tech industry. And I was really proud of that one. It's called Gods of a New World, and the author's name is Ryan Melsom.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Not that different from what I'm currently working on in some ways.
Well, it's, you're just extrapolating into the future things that we see around us now, and the whole AI thing, as you mentioned, which is certainly something in the writing field that I don't know where it's going. I've done a lot of reading of AI writing, but it's still the early stages, and yeah, I don't know where it's going. It certainly has a place as a tool for some things. At the same time, in the on-spec submissions, you have to say, I did not use AI to write this. Now, people could lie, but I'm trusting that they aren't.
Well, it's a weird thing because for research purposes, I've been talking to AIs just to see how they extrapolate things.
For example, I've done a lot of that.
Yeah, ChatGPT, for example, is very much a people pleaser. I noticed that about Grok can be moody. Which is an interesting thing, that, for lack of a better word, they do have a personality. I know that sounds really weird to say, but I kind of look at AI today as kind of like Pandora's box. I mean, would I have wanted to go down this pathway if I given the choice? Probably not. And I don't say that to not denigrate anything. It's just not my choice, but it's here. And I remember when I was a kid, and back in my day when the internet was a brand new thing, and my father and my dad and that generation had to adapt. And this is, like, for me, like the equivalent of that. Like, I have to adapt to what's here. I don't know where it's going. I don't think anyone completely knows where it's going. But I think that, like, you'd be a fool not to look at it.
Well, we're along for the ride, and it's a science fiction. We're living in a science fiction world, and it's getting more like that all the time.
Well, the phone is like a tricorder.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about that. Like, our phones can do everything a tricorder can, except, like, you can't quite do the medical thing, like in Star Trek, where we can repair bones and stuff with the phone yet. But we can, like, in one sense, like, the world's cool. We have the knowledge of the world is literally on our fingertips. Now, most of the time, we're looking at cat stuff, right? So, I mean, but even so,
But that's a very good use of the technology.
It is. it's also an odd repeat too. So I mean, in some ways, it kind of comforts me that human beings have never changed that much. On the other hand, it's like the future's here, and we're marching to it one day at a time. Uh, and it just so happens that we're in the sci-fi age, apparently. And that's kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah, I think we have a conversation here. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay, you should. So what's your? So I guess you should plug. You should plug Fireboy.
Okay. Well, Fireboy is a modern day middle grade / young A, yeah, young YA fantasy adventure. It's set in Alberta, and I can give a very brief synopsis. This girl named this girl named Sam is 13 years old, and she's worried about starting grade 8 because her entire grade 7 class disappeared on a field trip that she missed out on because of food poisoning. Nobody knows where these kids went. The bus was found over on its side, and the teacher was still there and unconscious, and one girl was buried in camping equipment in the back. That's Meg. And so Sam doesn't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden her best friend who was on that trip shows up in her campfire when she's out camping with her dad, made entirely out of fire, hence the title Fireboy. And then he shows up again in her backyard, and she has to figure out what happened to him, and she enlists the help of Meg, and they try to figure it out. And it's probably not giving too much away to say that elementals are involved, since it involves a boy made out of fire who's right there on the cover.
All right, so check it out, and it's been nominated for 3 different things, right? As it stands right now.
Yep,
So,
the Roar Award, the Manitoba Young Readers' Choice Award, and now the High Plains International Book Award.
Yes, it's currently available now for anyone that's interested. And if you want to get to know more about Edward himself, where can they find you?
EdwardWillett.com is my main website. I'm on X at eWillett. I'm on YouTube at Edward Willett. I'm on Instagram at Edward Willett Author, and I'm on Facebook at Edward.Willett. I missed that memo about having the same handle on everything.
I screwed that up too for a long time, so I understand. It's like, hey, I try something new, and now there's like a zillion of them. So it's like I got to remember them all now.
Or if you just search Edward Willett, I'm the first 2 or 3 solid pages of Google. So
that's right, folks. So check definitely, ladies and gentlemen. This is Edward Willett. He is a author first, publisher second, podcaster third. Am I right on that order?
Yeah, I would put it that way.
Yeah, podcaster third, and all around good guy. Take a look at Fireboy. Take a look at On Spec. The late pledges are still available. And yeah, folks, thanks very much for coming on my show, Ed.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and that will do it, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to keep following what I'm doing, check out my Substack, where I'm writing about my travels, where I've been, where I've gone, and where I'm going. And thanks for everybody watching. Thanks for everybody watching, listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time.